दोस्तों नमस्कार। दोस्तों आज 11 सितंबर है। 11 सितंबर 2001 को न्यूयॉर्क में वर्ल्ड ट्रेड सेंटर के दोनों टावर को 2 प्लेन के द्वारा अटैक करके उड़ा दिया गया था। तीसरा प्लेन इन्होंने एक हाईजैक किया था जो पेंटागन में गिरा था और एक चौथा प्लेन और भी इन्होंने हाईजैक किया था जो पेंसिल्वेनिया में गिरा था। यानी 4 प्लेन इन्होंने हाईजैक किए थे। इस पूरी हाईजैकिंग का जो मास्टरमाइंड था वो ओसामा बिन लादेन था, जो उस समय अफ़गानिस्तान में रह रहा था। ओसामा बिन लादेन सऊदीया का नागरिक था और उसे चूँकि अमेरिका इज़राइल को सपोर्ट करता है, इसके लिए उसे अमेरिका से नफ़रत थी। जब रूस अफ़गानिस्तान में बैठा हुआ था, तो रूस को निकालने के लिए अमेरिका ने मुजाहिदीनों की एक फ़ौज बनाई और उन मुजाहिदीनों ने मिलकर के रूसी फ़ोर्सेस के साथ में लड़ाई लड़ी और बाद में जब तालिबान ने रूस के निकलने के बाद में अफ़गानिस्तान पे कब्ज़ा किया, तो अब ओसामा बिन लादेन भी वहाँ पर चला गया। एक्चुअली ये सारा का सारा जो नाटक अफ़गानिस्तान में खेला जा रहा था, पाकिस्तान के साथ में मिलकर के, वो अफ़ीम के व्यापार के ऊपर निर्भर था। अफ़ीम अफ़गानिस्तान में पैदा की जाती थी। आईएसआई भी अफ़ीम की खेती में पूरा हाथ बटाता था, जिससे उनको पैसे मिलते थे। तालिबानियों को भी उससे पैसे मिलते थे और अफ़ीम की खेती करके उसको कज़ाकिस्तान, उज़्बेकिस्तान की तरफ से और हिंदुस्तान की तरफ से बाहर भेजा जाता था। पाकिस्तान में एक्यू खान जो उनका साइंटिस्ट था, उसकी मदद से वो लोग एटम बम भी बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे। तो अमेरिका उसके ऊपर भी नज़र रख रहा था। अमेरिका में जो वर्ल्ड ट्रेड सेंटर पे 11 सितंबर 2001 को अटैक हुआ, उसका जो हाईजैकर थे, उनका जो मेन था हेड मोहम्मद अता, उसको आईएसआई ने फंड किया था। शेख सईद करके एक आईएसआई का आदमी था, जिसे 99 में जब हमारे कंधार में जब हमारे प्लेन को हाईजैक करके लेके गए थे और उस समय मौलाना मसूद अजहर के साथ में शेख सईद को भी छोड़ा गया था। वो वही आदमी था जिसने मोहम्मद अता को न्यूयॉर्क की मैनहट्टन के बैंक में $1 मिलियन ट्रांसफर किए थे और वो आईएसआई का जो चीफ था पाकिस्तान का, मोहम्मद अहमद, उसके कहने पर किया था। अब ये जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, आप लोग बोलेंगे मैं कहीं से इसको ऐसे ही कहानी तो नहीं बना रहा हूँ, तो इसके लिए मैं आपके सामने एक आर्टिकल शेयर करता हूँ, इसको देखिए। ये टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया का आर्टिकल है, 9 अक्टूबर 2001 का है, यानी कि 11 सितंबर के बाद 9 अक्टूबर 2001 का ये आर्टिकल है। मनोज जोशी ने लिखा है इसको। इंडिया हेल्प FBI ट्रेस ISI टेररिस्ट लिंक। इसमें लिखते हैं, while the Pakistani inter-service public relation claimed that former ISI डायरेक्टर जनरल लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल मोहम्मद अहमद, जिसने वो मोहम्मद सईद खान शेख को बोला था कि तुम पैसा भेजो, sought retirement after being superseded on Monday. The truth is more shocking. एक्चुअली जब ज्यादा मालूम पड़ा कि ये मोहम्मद अहमद ने सईद शेख के थ्रू अता को पैसे भेजे हैं, तो मुशर्रफ ने उसको नौकरी से निकाल दिया था। उसके बाद में ये कहानी आई है। The top sources confirmed here on Tuesday that the general lost his job because of evidence India produced to show his links to one of the suicide bombers that wrecked the World Trade Center. The US authorities sought his removal after confirming the fact that $1 million were wired to World Trade Center, Pakistan, to Pakistani hijacker Mohamed Atta from Pakistan by Ahmed Umar Sheikh at the instance of General Mahmood. Senior government sources have confirmed that India contributed significantly to establishing the link between the money transfer and the role played by the dismissed ISI chief. While they did not provide detail, they said that Indian input, including Sheikh mobile phone number, helped the FBI in tracing and establishing the link. The direct link between the ISI and the WTC attack could have enormous repercussion. The US cannot but suspect whether or not there were other senior Pakistani army commanders who were in the know of the things. Evidence of larger conspiracy could shake US confidence in Pakistan's ability to participate in the anti-terrorism coalition. Indian officials say that they are vitally interested in the unveiling of the case, since it could link the ISI directly to the hijacking of the Indian airline Kathmandu Delhi flight to Kandahar last December. Ahmed Umar Sheikh is a British national and a London School of Economics graduate who was arrested by the police in Delhi following a bungled 1994 kidnapping of 4 Westerners, including an American citizen. इस आर्टिकल्स में ये लिखा गया है क्लियरली कि जो WTC में जो अटैक हुआ 11 सितंबर 2001 को और दिसंबर 99 में जो इंडियन एयरलाइंस का फ्लाइट काठमांडू से दिल्ली आ रहा था उसको हाईजैक किया गया था, उसके अंदर डायरेक्ट लिंक है, क्योंकि इसमें सबसे जो कॉमन आदमी है वो ये शेख है, जिसको IC 814 को हाईजैक करने के बाद में छुड़ाया गया था। अब यहाँ पर यह बताना जरूरी है कि आप लोगों ने शायद नेटफ्लिक्स में IC 814 अभिनव सिन्हा की जो डायरेक्टेड मूवी है उसको देखा होगा। उसमें वो पाकिस्तान को बिल्कुल क्लीन चिट देता है। आप खुद समझ सकते हैं कि अभिनव सिन्हा जैसे जो फिल्म के डायरेक्टर हैं वो किसके इशारे पर काम करते हैं और उनका इरादा क्या है। जनरल बिपिन रावत ने अपने मरने से पहले एक बार बोला था कि हिंदुस्तान को 2.5 दुश्मनों से लड़ना पड़ता है। एक दुश्मन तो पाकिस्तान है, एक दुश्मन चाइना है, और जो आधे दुश्मन है वो हिंदुस्तान में बैठे हुए हैं। तो अभिनव सिन्हा जैसे भारत के अंदर जो दुश्मन छुपे हुए हैं उनमें से वो एक है। अब मैं आपको एक चीज और बता देना चाहता हूं, वो ये है कि 9 सितंबर 2001 भी एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट डेट है। 9 सितंबर 2001 को अफगानिस्तान में कुछ घटनाएं हुई थी, इनके बारे में आपको जानना जरूरी है और उसके बारे में मैं आपको बताता हूं। ये 10 सितंबर 2021 का आर्टिकल है, यानी कि 20 साल बाद Commander Ahmad Shah Massoud was killed by militant posting as reporter. His friend Masood Khalili was there. क्या है इसमें? He tried to warn the world about Al Qaeda. Then he was assassinated 2 days before 9/11. It's been 2 decades since Al Qaeda militant hijacked 4 commercial planes and carried out their world-changing attack against the US on September 11, 2001. But 2 days earlier, the same group carried out another shocking act of violence in Afghanistan. On September 9, 2001, Ahmad Shah Massoud, the last major commander of the resistance against the Taliban, was assassinated by 2 Al-Qaeda operatives posing as reporters. And just like the September 11 attack, Massoud's assassination is believed to have been ordered by late Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. In the month leading up to his death, Massoud had tried in vain to warn the world about the threat posed by bin Laden and his followers. Afghan diplomat Masood Khalili was there when his friend was killed. He fought alongside Masood during the Afghan-Soviet War and later served as his AD. Here is part of the conversation with, as it happens, host Korolov. What are your thoughts and your feeling at your as you mark the 20th century of your friend's death? Very hard, madam. Hard because I have lost a friend who was just beside me sitting night before. We were talking politics and even poetry. One whom I knew for 23 years, fighting side by side for freedom of Afghanistan. Above that, on this day, I remember that Afghanistan has lost a great man, a hero, and a man who was a leader who led the country towards freedom. You were right there with them. You were watching this unfold in those minutes before he was killed. Did you have a bad feeling? Were you suspicious of these 2 men? Not at all, madam. These two just sat there. One had a camera just to show it, the other one sat beside Commander Masood. Commander said, "Okay, go on, get the camera and I will answer." And the question were like this: why are you against Osama bin Laden? Why in France did you announce a war to help you against Osama bin Laden? And why you are talking about terrorism? It's Islam. It's not terrorism. Commander just smiled and said, okay, go on. And then there was a big blast. Then commander was dying right on the spot and I was injured. I lost my eye, lost my ear. More than 300, 400 or more pieces of shrapnel in my body. I was unconscious until my wife pushed me and I opened my eyes and I said, this is again the word. What happened to my friend? She told me what happened to Commander Masood. ये है वो. Masood Khalili smiled from his wheelchair during a news conference in New Delhi on October 25, 2001, after surviving a suicide bomb attack that killed his friend. The assassination was a 2 day before September the 11th. Commander Masood has been trying to warn the American and Europe that Osama bin Laden, with the assistance of the Taliban, was planning something big. He was trying to warn the United States of the same. Why did you think they did not listen to him? That is still the question, ma'am, for me. I have got guesses that maybe because Pakistan had very good relations with America and was working as a kind of a looking glass for America to see what's going on in Afghanistan. They might have indeed told him that, well, he is Commander Masood. He is just saying things so that you will pay attention. When we entered Kabul and defeated the Soviets, we were abandoned totally. No one was paying any attention. Your Canadian embassy was not there. The American embassy was not there. They did not listen to us. I was going back to and forth to all these countries as a political officer and trying to tell them that, look, don't indeed abandon a nation because we are now in Afghanistan. We were called a month before heroes. Don't call us zeros. That was the second reason that they did not listen. And the third one was that this was new for everyone. Commander Masood did not know himself also that it would happen there in New York. The day that was killed a night before, he told me that more than 3,000 to 4,000 Al-Qaeda fighters were around Afghanistan 2 months before he told the word, be careful. They did not pay attention and unfortunately 9/11 happened and opened the door. What impact did Commander Masood's death have in Afghanistan? One, he was an honest man. He believed in the trust of people. Two, he was a moderate person. He was a Muslim, a strong Muslim, but not Islamist, but not fighting against the other religion because he was born Muslim. Number three, he believed in freedom. He wanted just to see freedom in the country. Number four, he believed much more in peace than war. Always he was telling me that, oh my goodness, what that comes, that we have peace. And I sit in my old garden and will just read poetry. He indeed believed very much that he should be helped against those who are invading Afghanistan or those who are coming into Afghanistan to bother other countries. And so these things happened that people liked him, and this was why he was killed. The United States has left once again Afghanistan after 20 years of fighting there after 9/11. And now you see your friend's son, Ahmed Shah Masood's son, Ahmed, who is attempting to lead some kind of resistance to the Taliban right now. What advice would you give him? To follow the path of his father. He is a smart man. He is 32 years old. ये अहमद शाह मसूद के बच्चे के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. तो कहने का मतलब यह है कि अहमद शाह मसूद ने अमेरिकन को वार्न कर दिया था कि ओसामा बिन लादेन कुछ करने वाला है, लेकिन जैसा होता है कि ठीक है, तुम बोल रहे हो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, हमारी तो सिक्योरिटी बड़ी टाइट है. और मैं आपको एक बता दूं, ये जो लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल आईएसआई का था, ये भाई जिस समय अमेरिका में अटैक हो रहा था उस समय अमेरिका में ही था, और यहाँ की जो डिस्पेंसन है मिलिट्री डिस्पेंसर है उनको उल्लू बना रहा था। उसके बारे में भी मैं आपको बताता हूं। पहले मैं आपके सामने एक किताब शेयर करता हूं, उसके में कुछ चीजें लिखी हैं जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे देख लेते हैं। ये देखिए, ये ये सितंबर 9, 2021 का है। When Tunisian fired the start gun for 9/11. A footnote in one decade of jihad history can become a major mobilizer for terrorists and foreign fighters in subsequent years, and few cases illustrate this problem better than the Tunisian operative involved in the 2001 murder of Afghan rebel leader. ये भी वही बात कर रहे हैं। 20 years ago today, the Tunisian helped carry out the assassination of Afghan Northern Alliance leader Ahmed Shah Massoud 2 days before the 9/11 attack. In the late 1990s, Massoud had been a key US ally against the Taliban advances, and although his fortune had changed significantly by 2001, Washington would no doubt have relied on him heavily during the post 9/11 invasion were he is still alive. Flash forward to this week, and the Taliban had just declared victory over resistant forces led by Massoud's son Ahmed in the Panjshir Valley, a sobering bookend to a battle the group has been waging against the Northern Alliance for 2 weeks. At the heavy Tunisian involvement and the other circumstances of the 2001 assassination merit a closer look, not only for their impact on subsequent development in the global jihadist movement, but also because of the implication they hold now that Afghanistan is once again under Taliban control. Massoud's death served multiple purposes, some of which were not entirely evident until after the fact. His killing was a gift that the Tunisian combat group and Al Qaeda gave the Taliban for fighting their local enemy, as well as a public signal to launch the 9/11 attack, an important an important part of Al Qaeda's preparation for the eventual coalition invasion of Afghanistan. This is the story of assassination, who was behind it, and why it still matters for individual attempting to understand how jihadist network change over time, and that types of operative may now return of Afghanistan. ये एवोल्यूशन बोल रहे हैं। उसके बाद में मसूद का Abul Iyad arrived in Afghanistan in early 2000 after being based in London since 1991 and acting under jihadist ideologue Abu Qutba al-Filistini. When he founded the TCG, at least 3 other members received the TCG training करके ये बोल रहे हैं। फिर one related 9/11 case is still open, that the Abdurrauf Jaide, a Tunisian Canadian who was initially among the 29 finalists for carrying out the plot. He even prepared a martyrdom video message and trained on a PlayStation flight simulator while staying with Khalid Sheikh Mohamed Atta and other Al Qaeda. ये सारे के सारे जो जितने भी ये देखिए क्या है ये and other Al Qaeda figure in Karachi, Pakistan that summer. He is believed to have dropped out of the operation upon traveling to Canada sometime before the attack. According to 9/11 Commission, Al Qaeda assigned him to the second wave of similar attack is hoped to carry out later. Jadi remains on the FBI most wanted list for further questioning and लिटिल इज मतलब ये जो सारे के सारे बंदे हैं ना जिन्होंने यहाँ पर 9/11 में अटैक किया था, ये सबकी ट्रेनिंग भी पाकिस्तान में हुई थी। At the time of Massoud assassination, the fact that a Tunisian network was involved did not receive much notice. Yet Abu Iyad activities before and crucially after 9/11 show why such details merit close long-term scrutiny. मैं आपको जो जैसे मैं प्रॉमिस किया था, एक बुक दिखाता हूँ, बुक में क्या लिखा हुआ है। मैं यहाँ पढ़ता हूँ, देखिए क्या लिखा है ये। Early on 7 September 2001, Amarullah Saleh, who coordinated intelligence liaison on behalf of Masood with Richard Blee, the new head of Alec Station, transmitted a routine report to Blee about two Arab television journalists who had crossed into Northern Alliance line from Kabul some weeks ago. Masood had authorized a helicopter to pick up the pair just north of Kabul and fly them to Khoja Bahauddin, a village just inside the Tajikistan border, where Masood has established his quarter after the loss of Talukan. The two Arabs checked into a guest house run by Masood's foreign ministry, where a dozen other Afghan journalists and visitors were staying. In fact, an Indian television documentary crew belonging to Delhi-based AIM television, which had been staying at that very guest house, had left for Fakhor on 18th August 2001 after interviewing Masood. A British journalist directly connected with MI6 was part of their crew and would go down in history as the last journalist who have interviewed Masood on camera. Masood was in no hurry to see the Arabs. Despite their letters and endorsement, their interview request languished. Day passed and still Masood was too busy, the visitors were told. A colleague told him that he ought to meet the two Arab journalists before he left since they had been waiting for many days. Finally, Masood relented, agreeing to meet them in the early hours of 9 September. The next morning on 10 September, he was scheduled to fly by helicopter to the Bagram Air Base to inspect his forward lines and assess Taliban position. The line of division between the Taliban and Northern Alliance forces led them through Bagram, cutting the famed Soviet air base into two. Masood suggested that the interview be conducted in the cement office used by his intelligence chief engineer Arif. Around noon, he settled in Arif House on a cushion designed to ease his back pain. Masood Khalili, his friend, जिसके बारे में मैंने अभी पढ़ के बताया, his friend and ambassador to India, sat next to him. Masood received a telephone call on his satellite phone and had to go outside to speak so that he had a line of sight with the satellite. 8 Arabs had been arrested by his troop near the front line at Bagram. He asked engineer Arif to investigate further. Masood returned by himself to Arif's room, where Khalili was waiting with the two Arabs. One of the Arab read out a list of questions while his colleague prepared to start rolling the DXC-673 Sony camera. About half of this question concerned Osama bin Laden. Masood listened, then said he was ready. Suddenly, there was a massive explosion as the suicide cameraman triggered the bomb concealed within the camera. The explosion ripped the cameraman's body apart, also killing his colleague. It smashed the room's window, seared the walls in flame, and tore Masood's chest with shrapnel. He collapsed unconsciously. Khalidi received almost 300 pieces of shrapnel in his body. Arif hurriedly alerted Masood's helicopter station at the helipad situated in a glitch close to the guest house in Khadoja Bahauddin. The helicopter was needed to urgently fly the wounded to Indian Field Hospital in Pakhor, Tajikistan. Masood's personal flyer, come bodyguard Najibullah Khan, drove the wounded Masood and Khalili in Masood's Toyota Land Cruiser to the helipad, where an Mi-8 helicopter had its rotor whirling. Najibullah insisted on accompanying Masood to Pakhor. On the flight, Najibullah cradled Masood's head in his lap while he saw life ebbing out of Masood's body. Amrullah Shaleh, accompanying the wounded was grief-stricken. ये अमरुल्लाह सालो उसका बच्चा था, लड़का था. The bearded and tinted spectacled wearing RAW station chief in Dusambe also flew down to Farkhor. From Farkhor, Amurullah Shah dialed Richard Bidley on the satellite phone. He had the presence of mind to carry with him on board the helicopter. Yet tearful Salah shared the news with Blee. On the morning of 10th November 2011, the CIA daily classified briefing to President Bush, his cabinet, and other policymakers reported on Masood's death and analyzed the consequences of America's covert war against Al-Qaeda. Inserting disguised Al-Qaeda agent from Taliban-ruled Kabul into Masood headquarters in Khoja Badin was a formidable operation. Masood troops were continuously hostile, alert against Arab volunteer. Al-Qaeda had tried to smuggle agents carrying explosive into the Panjshir the year before, but the perpetrator had been arrested. This time, Bin Laden's planner prepared the deceptive legend of their assassins carefully and exploited the long history of Arab jihadis in Afghanistan to complete the infiltration. इस तरीके से 9 तारीख को साहब को मार दिया. अब उसके बाद में क्या हुआ? 11 तारीख को on 11 September 2001, Musharraf was in Karachi visiting Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's mausoleum called Mazar-e-Qaid, where he came to know about 9/11. 9/11 अमेरिका के टाइम के हिसाब से मॉर्निंग में हुआ था, जिस समय इंडिया में शाम हो रही होती है. In Karachi, on the same day, a Pakistani citizen, Khalid Sheikh Muhammad, with the nom de guerre of Mukhtar, who first gave Osama bin Laden the idea of turning passenger jet into flying bombs and crashing them into building, smiled as he saw the Pentagon burn as a jet crashed into it. On the same day in Islamabad, the famous Pakistani journalist Hamid Mir was asked to switch on his TV by an unscheduled Pashtun messenger from bin Laden, who had sent Mir a watch as a present so as to connect the unfolding event in the USA with bin Laden. ये हामिद मीर के साथ में इनका संबंध बता रहा है. Simultaneously, in Rawalpindi, Lieutenant General Javed Aslam, Alam Khan, who ran analysis and foreign liaison at the ISI, hurriedly drove to ISI headquarters at G74 Abapara, Khaibandarwa, Suhrawardi, Islamabad, in the evening after he was informed of the collapse of the Twin Towers in New York. In Islamabad, CIA Islamabad Station Chief Robert Grainer was desperately trying to connect with Lieutenant General Javed Alam Khan as he saw the Twin Tower disintegrating. In Khost, Afghanistan, bin Laden heard a radio message informing him that Mohamed Atta, the leading hijacker, was boarding the ill-fated American Airlines flight. ये है मोहम्मद अता. In Washington, D.C., U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld was in the Pentagon private dining room having breakfast with a group of Republican congressmen when a plane struck the Pentagon. Also, at the same time in Washington, D.C., ISI Chief Lieutenant General Mohamed Ahmed was having breakfast in a room on the White House side of the Capitol with Senator Bob Graham and Porter Gross. This idiot was the main person who has instructed Sheikh Saeed to transfer 1 million to Mohamed Atta. और ये बंदा बैठा है अमेरिका में, और वो भी व्हाइट हाउस में, कैपिटल में. The chairman of the Senate and House Intelligence Committee. The discussion centered on Gross and Graham's last trip to Pakistan, where they had discussed with Musharraf the possibility of extraditing bin Laden. Musharraf had told them that he was unable to help, as Mohammed repeated the same reply. A catastrophe struck New York famed Twin Towers and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., among other places. As the NRO in At the NRO in Chantilly, Virginia, in the suburb of Washington, D.C., John Fulton, the CIA chief of strategic war gaming, was preparing to commence a pre-planned simulation to explore the disaster response needed if a plane were to strike a building. The simulation was due to start minute after the real attack happened. That night, U.S. Secretary of State General Colin Powell rang Musharraf. Morning had dawned in Karachi by then. That Musharraf was chairing a meeting at the Governor House. Musharraf was at first reluctant to take the call. Powell refused to go off the line and insisted that Musharraf be pulled out of whatever he was. Powell was blunt, repeating what U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage had told Ahmed a day earlier. You are either with us or against us. Powell had given an unequal ultimatum to Musharraf. Ahmed followed Powell's call with one to Musharraf. He said Armitage was warning Pakistan that if he chose to side with the terrorism, then we should be prepared. We should be prepared to be bombed back to the Stone Age. Musharraf saw it as shockingly barefaced threat and pondered Pakistan option. On 15th September, Ahmed was back at General Headquarters in Rawalpindi. Musharraf summoned the ISI chief along with some other senior officer to a meeting at which dispassionately analyzed Pakistan available option in light of the dual ultimatum issued by Powell and Armitage. Musharraf could not broker a consensus among the other generals present, and for 6 long hours, Lieutenant General Mohamed Ahmed, Lieutenant General Muzaffar Usmani, VCOS, Lieutenant General Javed Alam Khan, and another general argued against giving the US any help at all. Musharraf did not disagree. He was so US toady. Like many others, he had never forgiven the previous Bush, the present US President father, for cutting Pakistan loose in 1990, and he resented the way the US had snapped its finger at Pakistan in the hours of after 9/11. But the Machiavellian Musharraf, who had recalibrated the forces of jihad after the Soviets departed from Afghanistan, saw the making of a great opportunity. This was to both run with hare and hunt with hounds. In a classic expression of deception, Pakistan was the only country that could offer the US a launch pad into landlocked Afghanistan and could appear to open the door of the world into the closed world of bin Laden. For Muhammad's legal counsel, Sarifuddin Pirzada, it was 1979 once again, and Musharraf was at the cusp of same opportunity that his senior predecessor, General Zia, had with President Carter and Reagan. On 16 September, Lieutenant General Ahmed met with Grenier at the ISI headquarters. Grenier formally informed Ahmed that he had made initial direct contact with the Taliban. Grenier contact in the Taliban was Mullah Ahmad Jalil Akood, the deputy foreign minister whom he had met in January 2001 at a US embassy reception in Islamabad. Grenier had provided Jalil with an Inmarsat satellite phone and had independent contact with him since that morning. After the meeting, Awarid Ahmad decided to advance his departure for Kandahar to meet Mullah Umar. He left the next morning. He was welcomed into Mullah's Umar office by Mahfuz ibn al-Walid, who had broken with bin Laden to become the advisor of Mullah Umar. Mahfuz was present during the meeting and recalled that Ahmad told Mullah Umar never to hand over bin Laden to the American. Mullah Umar replied that because bin Laden had killed Commander Masood, who was his nemesis, there was no question of his ever handing bin Laden to the American. Apparently, before leaving the meeting, Ahmad promised to regularly brief Mullah Umar as and when the former become privy to the US plan. On 28 September, Ahmed returned to Kandahar along with two Pakistani brigadiers who would brief the Taliban leader at that and Al Qaeda on how to start a mountain guerrilla war against the American when they landed in Afghanistan. Earlier on 17 September in Washington, D.C., Bush signed a memorandum of notification authorizing the CIA to engage in covert operations, including targeted killing of members of Al Qaeda and its allies. 3 days later, on 20th September 2001, in his address to Congress after the event of 11 September 2001, Bush told the nation that America's current war against terrorism would be unique. On this point, Bush seemed to be wide of the mark. The war that was to commence in Afghanistan was not going to be unique, but was the logical outcome of the succession of covert war that the US had fought in Asia since the end of Second World War. This argument is explained in two ways. First, by the rise of the problematic doctrine of covert warfare, and second, by contradictory relationship that the US had with the global drug trade. On 26 September 2001, the CIA Northern Afghanistan liaison team led by Dari-speaking veteran CIA officer Gary Sechron landed by helicopter in Panjshir Valley. He had spent the better part of the last decade working with Commander Masood. Sechron set up a joint intelligence cell with Amarullah Saleh and engineer Arif. After Masood assassination, the command of the Northern Alliance forces had been assumed by his military chief Marshal Fahim Khan. Sechron's immediate task was to operationalize an old First World War German airstrip with the area controlled by Northern Alliance leader Abdul Saif. Since the end of the Vietnam War, the US had developed a covert warfare doctrine that combines the special operation forces with air power. Broadly speaking, it had been argued that the conduct of diplomacy through covert operation removes these covert wars from the purview of both congressional oversight and conventional diplomacy, thereby converting their battleground into the bottomless swamps of political instability that have manifest regional and global consequences. In Southwest Asia, opium has proven to be the most sensitive index of such instability during those covert wars. CIA protection transformed tribal warlord into powerful drug lord linked to international market in the wasteland. That is the consequence of such war. Only the poppy seems to flower, creating regions and whole nation with a lasting dependence on international narcotic traffic. The Afghan narcotic trade was monitored by the ISI Directorate S, which also covertly supplied armed, trained, and developed and released propaganda to legitimize the Taliban. The most famous ISI officer in the Afghan section of Direct S was former Pakistani Army SSG officer Brigadier Sultan Amir Tarrar, whose nom de jury was Colonel Imam. In 2001, Tarrar was the Pakistani Consul General in Herat. While evacuating from Afghanistan barely days before the US strike started, Tarrar ran into Grenier on an ISI flight to Islamabad. Grenier was returning after his penultimate and successful parley with Taliban to hand over bin Laden. Tarrar charmed Grenier during the flight. Back in Islamabad, Tarrar met the Taliban ambassador Mullah Ahmad Salah Jaif and said copious tears lamenting Musharraf's betrayal by aligning with the American. This was a classic example of ISI behavior, manipulating both the American and the Taliban simultaneously. The Taliban opium ban ended with 9/11. At the start of autumn planting in early September 2001, the Taliban announced an end to the opium prohibition over its voice of Sharia radio, and UN observers soon saw peasants preparing poppy fields in Nangarhar and Kandahar provinces, the Taliban heartland. Barely days after the US started military operation, the ISI dumped their stockpile on the market, sending opium price down by 80% and filling gaps in the global supply. 9/11 shook the entire structure of General Headquarters in Rawalpindi as devastating intelligence surfaced, pointing to the direct connection between the ISI, Musharraf, and the terrorists behind 9/11. On 6th October 2001, CNN broke a story on the US investigating discovery that Mohamed Atta, who had forced the ill-fated American Airlines flight into the World Trade Center, had received $1 million in a Manhattan bank account from the UAE. After Atta had paid the hijacker, he sent the balance money back to the sender. The sender of the fund was Ahmed Umar Sheikh, aka Saeed Sheikh, a convicted British citizen of Pakistan origin, a dropout from the prestigious London School of Economics, and a man who was also known to the world as an important ISI asset. Ahmed Umar Sheikh was reported to have been recruited by the ISI as far as back 1993. He was released by the Indian government from jail in 1999 after jihadis ISI operative hijacked Indian Airlines flight IC-814 from Kathmandu to Delhi and traded the seized passengers and aircraft for the release and swap of both Ahmed Umar Sheikh and the Harkat-e-Ansar General Secretary Masood Azhar. Ahmed Umar Sheikh was reported to have remitted the fund to Mohamed Atta at the instruction of Lieutenant General Mohamed Ahmed, ISI chief. The evidence was startling. अब फंस गए मुशर्रफ साहब तो मुशर्रफ साहब क्या करने वाले हैं On 7th October 2001, military operation in Afghanistan commenced with the start of Operation Enduring Freedom. Hours before the war against Al-Qaeda and its allies, namely the Taliban, began, Musharraf fired ISI Chief Lieutenant General Ahmed and forced him to retire from the army. In effect, he offered Ahmed's scalp as his own atonement for Ahmed's perceived action as his contribution to the American, emphasizing that he was going to clean up his Asian stable. This sacrifice was vital to identify himself as a repentant, reformed, and reliable subordinate to the US. Most importantly, he took his unprecedented step to protect both his nuclear program and his heroin inventory and supply lines from the prying eyes of the CIA. As Ahmed's successor, Musharraf appointed a clean-shaven ethnic Pashtun officer, Lieutenant General Ehsan ul Haq, as the ISI chief. Haq made the right noises and appeared to quickly position himself on the American bandwagon. ये है ऑन अक्टूबर 6 को मालूम पड़ा कि आईएसआई का इन्वॉल्वमेंट है 7th को उसको निकाल दिया ऑन 8th अक्टूबर मुशर्रफ प्रमोटेड two of his most loyal and long-standing colleague, Lieutenant General Mohammad Aziz, the commander of 4 Corps, to 4-star rank as chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, and Lieutenant General Mohammad Yusuf, the CGS, also to 4-star rank as VCOAS. Lieutenant General Aziz had previously served as Director Analysis at ISI, a position that made him the head of the intelligence operation in India and Afghanistan. He was also linked to Umar Sheikh. Lieutenant General Yusuf had been directly in charge of military intelligence prior to his promotion. The new appointee's service history explained that what lay behind the move. Musharraf and Aziz had trained together as commandos in the 1960s and together with Yusuf had played critical roles in the training of the Afghani Mujahideen in the 1980s under the patronage of Lieutenant General Hamid Gul. All the 3 4-star generals had run the proxy war in Kashmir in the early 90s, and Aziz had been the ground handler of Musharraf's Kargil disaster in 1999. Aziz was entwined with a host of Pakistan jihadi proxy to such an extent that when Musharraf had tried to promote him to the commander of 10 Corps in October 1999 as a prelude to making him the army chief, a job that would have brought him back to Islamabad, both Qazi Hussain Ahmed of the Jamaat-e-Islami and Maulana Fazlur Rahman of the Jamaat-e-Islam protested, warning that this would weaken the jihad of Kashmir. Musharraf subsequently backed down. Musharraf was heavily influenced by Aziz, who had strongly advised against any country against action against either Mullah Umar or bin Laden during Clinton visit to Pakistan in 2000. Aziz had also opposed US demand for action against the ISI proxy, Harkat-ul-Mujahideen and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Musharraf consequently had great reliance on the trust in Aziz and therefore promoted him to the post of chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff by vacating that position himself. Furthermore, Yusuf new post of Vice Chief of Army Staff was, after Aziz, the second most important job in the Pakistan Army. Both men were known to be strict and devout Muslims, praying 5 times a day, even in battles, and spending all their spare times on the furtherance of the Tablighi Jamaat movement. As the top official of the White House prepared for war, there were complaints against the planners in the Pentagon and the top Bush administration that very few targets in Afghanistan would be of military consequences. The CIA and MI6 each prepared comprehensive list of potential targets, including about 2 dozen major heroin refineries, storage warehouse, and other opium-related facilities. However, from the commencement of military operation in Afghanistan, the White House and the Pentagon would conspicuously avoid targeting the drug lord. On 11th October 2001, just 4 days after Operation Enduring Freedom began, President Bush sat down with his National Security Advisor, Condoleezza Rice, discussing, among other things, the continued search for target. Originally, Rumsfeld had said the Pentagon considered targeting both heroin refineries and heroin storage areas, but did not go so with this because of the concern that there would be a collateral damage. In respect to the CIA was aware of the somewhat delayed view that the bombing these targets would have directly reduced Afghanistan's ability to produce opium throughout 2001. MI6 wanted these targets bombed because most of the heroin in Britain come from Afghanistan. The White House did not oblige. तो ये है कहानी इन लोगों की. कहने का मतलब ये है कि 99 के अक्टूबर में जब मुशर्रफ साहब नवाज शरीफ को हटा करके आते हैं तो दुनिया का नक्शा बदल जाता है भाई. 19 मिलिटेंट इन्वॉल्व थे. सारे के सारे का एसोसिएशन जो अलकायदा से अगेंस्ट टारगेट इन द यूनाइटेड स्टेट, द डेडलिएस्ट टेररिस्ट अटैक ऑन अमेरिकन सॉइल इन यूएस हिस्ट्री. The attack against New York City and Washington D.C. caused extensive death and destruction and triggered an enormous U.S. effort to combat terrorism. Some 2,750 people were killed in New York, 184 at the Pentagon, and 40 in Pennsylvania, where one of the hijacked plane crashed into the ground after the passengers attempted to retake the plane. All 19 terrorists died. Police and fire department New York were especially hard hit. Hundreds rushed to the scene of the attack and more than 400 people, police officer and firefighter were killed. The September 11 attack was precipitated in large part because large part because Osama bin Laden, the leader of the militant Islamic organization Al Qaeda, had naive belief about the United States in the run of the attack. Abu Walid al Masri, an Egyptian who was a bin Laden associate in Afghanistan in the 1980s and 90s, explained that in the year prior to the attack, bin Laden became increasingly convinced that America was weak. He believed that the United States was much weaker than than some of those around him thought. Masri remembered, and as evidence, he referred to what happened to the United States in Beirut when the bombing of the Marine base led them to flee from Lebanon, referring to the destruction of the Marine barrack there in 1983, which killed 241 American servicemen. Bin Laden believed that the United States was a paper tiger, a belief shaped not just by American departure from Lebanon following the Marine barrack bombing, but also by the withdrawal of the American forces from Somalia in 1993. Following the death of 18 US servicemen in Mogadishu and the American pullout from Vietnam in the 1970s. The key attack was, the 11 key attack was, एक minute. The key operational planner of the September 11 attack was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, often referred to as KSM in the later 9/11 Commission report and the media, who had spent his years in Kuwait. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed became active in the Muslim Brotherhood, which he joined at the age of 16 and then went to the United States to attend college, receiving a degree from North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University in 1986. Afterward, he traveled to Pakistan and then Afghanistan to wage jihad against the Soviet Union, which had launched invasion against Afghanistan in 1979. According to Yashur Fauda, a journalist at the Arabic language cable television channel Al Jazeera, who interviewed him in 2002, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed planned to blow up some dozen American planes in Asia during the mid-90s, a plot known as Bojinka that failed. But the dream of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed never faded. And I think by putting his hand in the hands of bin Laden, he realized that he now stood a chance of bringing about his long awaited dream. In 1996, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed met bin Laden in Tora Bora, Afghanistan. The 9/11 Commission, formerly the National Commission on Terrorist Attack upon the United States, set up in 2002 by US President George W. Bush and the US Congress to investigate the attack of 2001, explained that it was then that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed presented a proposal for an operation that would involve training pilot who would crash plane into building in the United States. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed dreamed up the tactical innovation of using hijacked plane to attack the United States. Al Qaeda provided the personal money and logistic support to execute the operation, and Bin Laden wove the attack on New York and Washington into a larger strategic framework of attacking the far enemy of the United States in order to bring about regime change across the Middle East. The September 11 plot demonstrated that Al Qaeda was an organization of global reach. The plot played out across the globe with planning meeting in Malaysia, operative taking flights, lessons in the United States, coordination by plot leaders based in Hamburg, Germany, money transfer from Dubai, and recruitment of suicide operative from countries around the Middle East, all activities that were ultimately overseen by Al Qaeda leaders in Afghanistan. Key parts of the September 11 plot took shape in Hamburg. Four of the key pilots and planner in the Hamburg cell, who would take operation control of the September 11 attack, including the lead hijacker Mohamed Atta, had a chance meeting on a train in Germany in 1999 with an Islamist militant who struck up a conversation with them about fighting jihad in Russian Republic of Chechnya. The militant put up the Hamburg cell in touch with an Al Qaeda operative living in Germany who explained that it was difficult to get to Chechnya at that time because many travelers were being detained in Georgia. He recommended that they should go to Afghanistan instead. Although Afghanistan was critical to the rise of Al Qaeda, it was the experience that some of the plotters acquired in the West that made them simultaneously more jealous and better equipped to carry out the attack. Three of the four plotters who would pilot the hijacker hijacked plane on September 11, and one of the key planner, Ramji Bina Silvia, became more radical while living in Hamburg. Some combination of perceived and real discrimination, alienation, and homesickness seem to have turned them all in more militant direction, increasingly cutting themselves off from the outside world. They gradually radicalized each other, and eventually the front decided to wage battle in Bin Laden's global jihad, setting off from Afghanistan in 1999 in search of Al Qaeda. Atta and the other militant members of the Hamburg group arrived in Afghanistan in 1999, right at the moment that the September 11 plot was beginning to take shape. Bin Laden and his military commander Mohamed Atta realized that Atta and his fellow Western-educated jihadis were far better suited to lead the attack on Washington and New York than the men they had already recruited, leading Bin Laden to appoint Atta to head the operation. The hijacker, most of whom were from Saudi Arabia, established themselves in the United States, many well in advance of the attack. They traveled in some group and in some small group, and some of them received commercial flight training. Throughout his stay in the United States, Atta kept Bin Salbis Bin Salsby updated on the plot's progress via email. To clock his activity, Rata wrote the message as if he were writing to his girlfriend, Jenny, using innocuous code to inform that they were almost complete in their training and readiness for the attack. Atta wrote in one message, the first semester commences in 3 weeks, 19 certificate for private examination and 4 examination. He referenced 19 certificates were code that identified the 19 Al Qaeda hijacker, while 4 exams identified the target of the attack. In the early morning of August 29, 2001, Atta called Binal Sibha and said that he had a riddle that he was trying to solve. 2 sticks, a dice, and a cake with stick down. What is it? After considering the question, Mr. realized that Atta was telling him that the attack would occur in 2 weeks, the 2 stick being the number 11, and the cake with 1 stick down at 9. Putting it together, it meant that the attack would occur on 11/9 or 11 September. In most countries, the day precedes the month in the numerical date, but the United States, the month precedes the day. Hence, it was 9/11 in the United States. On September 5, Bin Salman left Germany for Pakistan. One there, he sent a message to Afghanistan to inform Bin Laden about both the day of the attack and its scope. On September 11, 2001, group of attackers boarded 4 domestic aircraft at 3 East Coast Airport, and soon after takeoff, they disabled the crew, some of whom may have been stabbed by with box cutter. The hijacker were secreting. The hijacker then took control of the aircraft, all large and bound for the west coast with full load of fuel. At 8:46 a.m., the first plane, American Airlines Flight 11, which had originated from Boston, was piloted into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Most observers construed this initially to be an accident involving a small commuter plane. The second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, also from Boston, struck the southern tower 17 minutes later. At this point, there was no doubt that the United States was under attack. Each structure was badly damaged by the impact and erupted into flame. Office workers who were trapped above the point of impact in some cases lived to the death rather than face the infernos now raging inside the tower. The third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, taking off from Dallas Airport near Washington, D.C., struck the southwest side of Pentagon just outside the city at 9:37 a.m., touching off a fire in that section of the structure. Minute later, the Federal Aviation Authority ordered a nationwide ground stop, and within the next hour at 10:03 a.m., the fourth aircraft, United Airlines Flight 93 from Newark, New Jersey, crashing near Sanseville in the Pennsylvania countryside after its passenger informed the event via cellular phone attempted to overpower their assailant. At 9:59 a.m., the World Trade Center's heavily damaged South Tower collapsed, and the North Tower fell 29 minutes later. Clouds of smoke and debris quickly filled the street of Lower Manhattan. Office workers and residents ran in panic as they tried to outplace the billowing debris cloud. A number of other buildings adjacent to the Twin Tower suffered serious damage, and several subsequently fell. Fires at the World Trade Center site smoked smoldered for more than 3 months. Rescue operation began almost immediately. चलो ठीक है, फिर क्या हुआ? Bush visited ground zero. ठीक है. The emotional distress. तो ये है कहानी 9/11 की। रिस्पॉन्सिबल थे इसके बारे में। मुशर्रफ को अपने गोदी में बिठा के रखा था। मुशर्रफ के चमचों ने तालिबान के साथ में मिलकर के, उसामा बिन लादेन के साथ में मिलकर के ये सब कुछ किया था। अब मैं करता हूँ स्ट्रीम को बंद।